I am. All right. Good evening. I now call the meeting to order at 7:02 p.m. Welcome to ANC 1E's October General Body Meeting. This is our second hybrid in-person and virtual meeting. So we are going to ask for everybody to have a little bit of patience with us. We are talking through our computers and have a couple of pieces of equipment to help us make sure that we are being clear with members of the community who are joining us virtually, and also allowing people to hear that are with us in person. So we appreciate your patience in advance. A few administrative notes as we get started. Today's meeting is being recorded. For those joining us virtually through Zoom, closed caption is available for each user by clicking the button on the toolbar below. Please submit questions through the Q&A function located on the toolbar also below. If you're calling in rather than participating through the web, you may raise your hand by dialing *9. We'll be monitoring questions throughout the meeting. I will now ask Secretary Jacobson to please conduct the roll.
Commissioner Gallagher?
Present.
Commissioner Gallagher said present. Commissioner Lancaster?
Present.
Commissioner
Present.
Commissioner Brown?
Present.
Commissioner Newland?
Present.
Commissioner Jacobson? Present, that's me. And Chair Footer?
Present.
All right, with 7 of 7 seated commissioners in attendance, we have a quorum.
Great, thank you. A few ANC administrative matters. So per DC law, the ANC 1E meeting was noticed to the community via listserv, social media, website, and e-calendar. Now we will move to the approval of the agenda. I am sharing my screen and just quickly going through what we have on the agenda for this evening. We'll start off with the consent agenda, where we have 2 items. One is the approval of the meeting minutes from September, and the other one is a letter regarding sanitary issues at Parkview Rec Center. Then we'll go into community announcements, where we have a special guest, Council Member Brianne Nadeau, and then we will hear from the Mokers. Then we'll go into official business, and we'll start with the Transportation and Public Space Committee, where we have 2 resolutions. Then we'll move on to Zoning and Economic Development Committee, where we also have 2 resolutions, and then an update from Public Safety and Engagement Committee. And then we will be done. So we have a nice short agenda for this evening. Having read through the agenda, are there any adjustments or amendments? And again, Bobby, as we try to just coordinate virtual and in person, if you have anything, I will make sure to give you additional time to just raise your hand, and I will keep an eye out to make sure that I capture anything that you may need to chime in on. All right, well, seeing that there may be no edits to the agenda, I will now accept a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved with unanimous consent.
Is there any dissent? All right, seeing none. The motion is adopted and the agenda is approved. Next, we will move on to the consent agenda. Just a reminder, all matters listed under consent are considered by the commission to be routine and will be enacted by one motion. Any commissioner may, however, remove an item from the consent agenda by request. The consent agenda, as I mentioned, includes 2 items. One is the approval of the September general body meeting minutes, and then the other is the approval of a letter regarding sanitary issues at Parkview Rec Center that was brought to us by Commissioner Ray. Are there any items within the consent agenda Commissioner wishes to move to official business for further discussion? Right. None. I will now accept a motion to adopt the consent agenda.
So moved with unanimous consent.
Is there any dissent? All right, hearing none, the motion passes and the consent agenda the items in the consent agenda are approved. We're moving right along. Next on our agenda is to do the community announcements, and we do have a special guest. We'll just go through, and then when she gets here, awesome. Yeah, not a problem at all. All right, so a quick note about community announcements. Commissioners and members of the community can use this time to make public announcements, distribute information, or alert the community about issues. For members of the public, if you are here to discuss an item listed under official business, please hold your comments until we get to that item on the agenda. As I was just mentioning, we do have a special guest with us tonight who will have 10 minutes for her presentation, then take questions from commissioners and then the public. Then we'll go to announcements from commissioners, then the Mayor's Office of Community Relations and Services, also known as MOCRS, and then members of the public. All speakers with announcements have 3 minutes. So just giving the council member a couple more minutes, we'll actually start with commissioner announcements. Are there any commissioners that have announcements? No? All right. I have a couple, so I'll just go through those. And welcome, Councilwoman. Good to see you. Please take your time. We're just going to do this real quick, and then we'll come back over to you. Awesome. So just a couple of updates. So I've been working with 3 other commissioners, 1 in 1B and 2 in 5E, and we've been trying to rally around some ideas on how we can work on improving or updating 4 fields around KC Lewis Fields. We've made a lot of great progress with DC agencies, and now we are going to the community to try and learn more about what are some of the things that might be barriers for accessing it, and what are some things that people are interested in doing with the space. So we released a survey, and it's been open to the public for about 2 weeks, and it'll be open for another 3rd. And so looking forward to hearing comments from the public. Right now we have about 60 responses, and we will take that information and we will compile it into some suggestions that we look forward to working with DGS, DPW, and DPR and the council member's office as we get over there. The other thing I wanted to give a quick update on was the transportation package. I met with DDOT and DPW over the past 2 or 3 weeks just to continue progress with the 12 different items that we have in the package. I'm happy to report that 6 of them are complete, or we've made significant progress towards them being complete. And the other 6 are things that will probably be a little bit more longer term, and we're dealing with maybe 1 or 2 hiccups, but so far have had really good success, and very thankful to the DPW and DDOT for all of their help and support in getting these things done. That is all that I have. So I see that Commissioner Ray has his hand up, so I'm going to go on mute. Commissioner Ray.
I will follow up, though, that you have in the Q&A a request if you can share the link to the survey, which you may need to do at another time, but when you get a chance.
Yeah.
I raised my hand, however, because you reminded me that the Parkview Recreation Center is also going through a renovation project. So if there are neighbors that are interested in following along, there's going to be a survey coming out here pretty soon to ask the neighbors what they would like to see at the rec center in terms of programming and services. So, it's good to get on the email list so that you'll receive that information. So if you want to reach out to me directly at ANC1E03, at 1E03@anc.dc.gov. You'll also find that information on our website at anc1e.gov. We can make sure that you're on the mailing list for the Parkview Rec Center renovations. Thank you.
Thank you. Do any other commissioners have announcements or comments? All right. Seeing none, we have a very special guest with us today. We have Councilmember Brianna Nadeau from Ward 1, who is here to provide updates and talk to us. Thank you for joining us. So we have 10 minutes allotted for you to give a presentation, and then you can take questions or however you'd like to use your time. The only ask that I will say is if you, on the iPad, if you just unmute on that, and then we should be good to go.
How's that?
Great.
Excuse me. Hold on. It's the 1E cough. Everybody in my household that lives in ANC 1E has the cough. See, so, which is my cute way of saying it's great to be here with my own ANC. I am very happy that you put me on the agenda tonight, and grateful because I know you have a full one. So thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Commissioners. Actually, we move our community office hours around the ward, and next month will be in 1E. So we look forward to sharing the information with you once it's scheduled. We do those within our small businesses. So we will let you know soon which one will be hosting us, so that you are welcome to stop by, although certainly not obligated. I know you're very busy, but we always love to see you. We've also restarted the coffee walk, where I walk with residents to talk about the specific issues they're working on in each neighborhood. And those can be things like rats, public safety, trash, but other ways we can make neighborhoods a better place. And we will get you one scheduled in the coming months as well. We try to make them early in the morning for those who have to go to work. So we will get that together. Because we're together, I wanted to give a shout out to Georgia Avenue Thrive, which has recently reconvened in the corridor and doing the great work that it's always done to bring people together and to connect people around their specific interests in the neighborhood. So I'm very excited that Matt McFarland is getting folks back together. David on my team was at the last meeting, and I can tell you it's really impressive to hear everything that's planned for supporting businesses and addressing trash and safety issues. So it's great to have the bench get deeper and deeper in 1E, and just to have more ways for community members to get involved, to contribute, and to understand all the things going on to try to make our neighborhood safer and more community oriented. So just a handful of updates from the council today. One is that we had great news recently that two aspirational aspects of the FY24 budget are going to fall into place, and that is funding for doubling SNAP benefits, as well as $20 million of assistance for excluded workers. And that latter one is one that I had put in the budget that would only come to fruition if our revenue estimate hit a certain point. And in the recent report from the CFO, the revenue estimate hit that point. And so $40 million will go to SNAP and $20 million for excluded workers. The SNAP bill is something I moved through my committee when I was the chair on Human Services. With the high increase in the high cost of living that we're facing right now in inflation, we know food costs have gone up and SNAP doesn't stretch as far as it did. So I'm excited that we were able to do that at the council, and that it's coming together. And council members Lewis, George, and Henderson were really key to those efforts as well. All 13 council members co-introduced a bill to establish a Black Queer History Commission to document DC's Black LGBTQIA+ history, which I was able to hold a hearing on, and we expect to mark up soon. Of course, DC is the birthplace of Black Pride, so we want to make sure that we are raising awareness about all of that history and we can honor it appropriately. I know there was a vigil earlier tonight just across the street for a trans woman who was murdered on 9th Street. And, really those two things in such stark contrast have me thinking tonight about how much more we have to do. So the mayor proposed a new bill earlier this week called Addressing Crime Trends Now. Council just got the draft of the bill yesterday, and it's not the final version, so we're still looking at it. We're always, obviously being asked to react to it because there's been a lot of media coverage. So, it is hard to react without the final version, but I'm going to do my best here and just say, so I'm glad to see the focus on retail theft. That's been a pressing issue, but I am always very cautious about our methodology and how we do that. Making sure that we go after places like Facebook Marketplace and others accountable for the platforming of stolen goods. It's a really liberal use of the verb there, platforming. But we're taking a look at that in particular. And that's something that I've been thinking about anyway, as it pertains to fake license plates and how those are sold in the Facebook Marketplace, and thinking about how we can go at those platforms there. There are several public safety bills that deserve the council's attention right now as well, such as Robert White's Whole of Government Response to Crime, which I co-sponsored, my bill to increase recruitment to the police department's cadet program, and the permanent version of Councilmember Pinto's public safety bill, which I voted to support in July. So I know you heard me say before that we also have to be focused on using the tools that we have. And there's a few that I have in my mind. One is, more mobile cameras in crime hotspots, the redistribution of MPD resources to areas with the most violent crime, the reaccreditation of the crime lab. The lab director, I visited the lab earlier this month or last month, and applied. They told me while I was there, they've reapplied for 2 of the units, still 3 others are not accredited, and they need to move quickly on that, so that when we take cases to trial and the evidence is processed in our lab, defense attorneys are not able to cast doubt on the validity of that data. It makes it a lot harder to get convictions and actually get justice for people that have been victims of crime. Appointing a permanent director to the Office of Neighborhood Safety and Engagement needs to be a priority. In our ward, I've invested millions and millions of dollars into that office, and we need to ensure that it is well spent and that there's a strong vision for how it's being implemented here and across the city. Improving the closure rate on homicides, which is work that we need to be done at MPD with detectives and with our partners. Fixing the failing 911 center, which is something I know we all hear about from our constituents. And, we know the district can't prevent and respond to crime if dispatch can't successfully send first responders to the scene. And if the crime lab can't process evidence, and if the U.S. attorney won't prosecute crime. So those are 3 things that I think, in addition to various legislative proposals, can be addressed now and need to be addressed now. And I'll continue my engagement with the police department, the crime lab, and other executive agencies on that. And I'm looking forward to working with the mayor and my council colleagues on crafting new legislation and making our existing ecosystem more effective. The FY24 budget went into effect October 1st. That has $4.5 million in public safety investments for Ward 1, including more funds for violence interrupter efforts in Columbia Heights, LaDroit Park, Parkview, and 14th and B area. It also includes targeted substance use outreach along Lower Georgia Avenue, in addition to all of the other commercial corridors. And that is modeled after the pilot we did on Columbia Heights Plaza. There is a report on that now, which I've been trying to share liberally. And if you don't have a copy, we'll make sure you get it. But it talks about the dozens of people that we were able to get into detox and rehab through the pilot program, the 38 people that we helped get housed, and then the programs and things that we've been able to do in that space to put it to good use as we're helping people with their treatment, because it's harder to program those spaces if folks are using there. The Sobering Center is planned for this fiscal year as well. That's in Columbia Heights. It's going to help the whole ward because it allows people to have a place indoors for treatment and also for, for getting help. And, there are a lot of reasons to care about substance use disorder and providing these services. And for some of us, it's about helping those folks. For some folks, the sobering center is helpful because then they don't have to see it happening outside. And I know that for some people, that's their angle. And so it seems to serve both. I've actually been working very closely with HIPS on funding that's supposed to be coming through shortly for the 7th and T area, right by the Howard Theater. And one thing that I'm trying to do is help find space in that area as well. So like right around here to have a harm reduction center. And that's like kind of not on the books per se. It's just like me out talking to property owners saying, hey, this is HIPS, here's what they do. Do you have a room? So I've talked to a couple churches in the area. We've talked to Howard. So just FYI, I know that everything that happens in that area, whether it's within your boundaries, really trickles through. So that's been a concerted effort. And when that funding is available, they have 120 days to put out the RFP for these grants, but we're pushing them to put them out faster because the need is now and people are hurting now. And there's a ripple effect across the board on those. We have moved forward with the new chief's nomination. I believe that she was voted out of committee yesterday. And I've been talking with her a lot about the issues in Ward 1, especially the redistribution of police resources to the areas with the highest crime, including violent crime. And the way her officers are now engaging more directly with residents and businesses seems to be positive. I've arranged for the chief to come to Ward 1 to address residents on November 28th at the Festival Center in Adams Morgan from 6:30 to 8. And I hope you'll join. And I hope folks will come with good questions for the chief and ready to hear about her plans for Ward 1 and the city. I'm sure I'm close to my time here, so I want to wrap with some information about the traffic safety bills that we have in consideration before the council. My committee joined the Transportation and the Environment Committee to hold a joint hearing on 4 bills on traffic safety earlier this month. One of them was mine about fake tags, and then we had 2 from Councilmember Henderson and 1 from Allen. Enforcement shouldn't be rooted in just who can pay the tickets. And we can't just let people pay a fine and continue to drive dangerously. And we really need to be focusing on changing behavior, not just paying tickets. So parking enforcement, which comes under my committee, plays a really important role there. And my bill focuses on fake license plates and expired temp tags, which is something everybody complains about. There's a lot of agreement on this issue. And it's also incredibly hard to enforce. And that's why we need to change the law to make that easier. It gives DPW and other enforcement agencies the authority to immediately tow and impound cars whose owners have blatantly flouted the law by having clearly counterfeit, obscured, or long expired plates. The obscured plates is one that people have raised a lot too. You're driving down the street or walking down the street or biking down the street and you can't even read the plate because it's got a plastic cover and it's tinted. Well, it makes it hard to do enforcement of that. So we're not going to make that allowable. And then let's see. Oh, even a vehicle with no license plates under current law can't be towed unless it has 2 or more unpaid tickets, which is kind of a catch-22. So you can see why that's a problem. So the bill also empowers DC government to proactively investigate and shut down dealers and distributors of falsified and counterfeit temporary tags and classifying that act as forgery, which is what I was talking about earlier with Facebook Marketplace. But it's not limited to that. And then in the budget that just went into effect, I added close to 40 new parking enforcement, booting, and towing positions. And so DPW is in the process of hiring those now. So, and if any of you are participating in the new composting program, I hope you're enjoying it. I think tonight's my night to put out my compost. We're having a fun time in our house. What's great about it is not only we are getting more waste out of the landfill, but we're also putting our food waste into a little rat-proof bin instead of into the green cans, and it makes it harder for the rats to get to it and also makes it better for our community and healthier and cleaner. So I'm hoping the pilot turns out great and that more people will participate as we expand it so that we can continue to get that waste out of the waste stream and combat those rats. That's all I have for you tonight. At the chair's pleasure, I would be happy to take questions.
Thank you very much. Commissioners, questions? Yes, please, Commissioner Ray.
Just in case. So going back to public safety, I want to get your thoughts, given, where you stated about placing officers where they're most needed. A lot of the folks that I talk to along the Georgia Avenue corridor feel that foot patrols or bike patrols along the commercial strip of Georgia Avenue have been necessary for a long time. We had them once. They're not currently doing them. It does seem like MPD, when they get a crunch in their own numbers, it's the first thing they pull are the foot patrols. But I think they really do help in terms of keeping crime off the corridor. So it may not necessarily have a direct correlation to where the crime is, but I think we see a trend down. So I'm just trying to get your feelings or thoughts on that.
I agree with you. I think foot patrols are really important. And it's one of the things that a lot of people agree on is if we are going to have more police per capita than anywhere in the city, we want them to be out and about and interacting with the community. I think, I won't speak for her, but I think the new chief agrees. I've seen a lot more initiatives since she started really focused on this. And in addition to just as part of the regular beat, also scheduling more walks in communities. I've been invited to so many MPD walks over the past 3 months, and I try to go to as many as possible, but it's actually so many that I can't make it to them all, which is great. It's there's a really strong business beat that's been out a lot more in our commercial corridors. And then officers with various disciplines have joined as well, in addition to the folks on the beat. And I think that helps. I think, there are different interventions for different types of crime. And one of the biggest increases in crime that we've had is violent robberies. Robberies are a crime that can be deterred by police presence because they're crimes of opportunity. And I'm not saying that everybody doing it is smart, but I'm saying that if you are a smart person doing that and you see there's a police officer on the block, you're less likely to do that right there. And that matters. The conversation about staffing levels and where police are placed, I think it's a very challenging one, because what I see when I look at the staffing model is that we have sort of a baseline staffing that doesn't really take into account levels of crime, which doesn't make a lot of sense. And there are some sleepier parts of the city that really don't have a lot of crime or density that have the same base level as parts of Ward 1. And that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And one of the biggest mismatches in terms of crime and staffing levels is PSA 305 right here, where we are right now on U Street. And that's something that I've been raising, but it still hasn't been addressed other than by our commander, who's moved folks around within the 3rd district to address it. He's moved 5 people, but we don't need them moved within the 3rd district. We need them moved from places that don't have as much crime and activity. So that's how I'm talking to the chief about it, and I'm trying to talk to others about it. The bigger conversation about funding around staffing, I think, also has gotten a little confusing, because the issue that we have right now is more about recruitment. And so that's why my bill focuses on building out our locally grown cadet program. And I'm hoping we'll get a hearing on that to help with those issues, because money isn't the problem. The bonuses have been fully funded, but we're at this point competing with every police force across the country. And we have a pretty high cost of living. And so it may not be the most attractive place for someone to say pick up and move to if they want to stretch their dollar, which most people do, right? And you have a hard job and then also you can't make ends meet. That's not ideal, right? So growing that cadet program, which is 100% DC residents, recruits from high school, in my mind, is a really smart way to go. So I hope we can. Thanks for the question.
Right, and there was a question in the Q&A if you want to hit that.
Thank you. So I did have a couple of questions that I wanted to follow up on with respect to the bids. So first and foremost, thank you so much for putting into the budget the $500,000 for, and please correct me, the Uptown Arts District Place Management. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit more about, one, where that is, two, the intention of it, and where you see that going? And I guess I just want to feed off of the public safety thing. It really, that everybody that I talk to in this area, it's a thriving business area. really are interested in those services coming here. Don't care if you call it a bid, a SID, a mid, a did, whatever. Like, it's just getting it here. And so I think the first and probably the hardest step is getting those funds there. Really, thank you. So what's next, and how can we be helpful?
Thank you for asking the question. So, for decades, folks have been wanting a business improvement district for U Street. And I served on ANC 1B for 2 terms, and I remember it then. And the thing with the business improvement district is businesses have to opt into it. And so it just hasn't come together. And in the interim, it's like, all right, well, I can fund a Main Street. I can fund a clean team. But it's become really clear that we need some entity to manage all the things going on U Street. And right now we have the Nightlife Task Force on U Street, which is coordinated by the Deputy Mayor for Public Safety. And that brings together DDOT, DPW, MPD, APCA, and Department of Licensing and Consumer Protection. And those enforcement bodies are out on weekends, and they're doing great work. They're booting, they're towing, they're citing businesses they're not in compliance, they're doing rolling road closures to prevent dangerous driving. And with the community improvement district, which is a different form of a bid, we can have an entity that's managing all the things we need to do, helping us think through pedestrian zones and first aid tents, and having a peace team, and having all these other things that we could have if somebody was coordinating it. So the way that we're doing this is a little bit of budget voodoo. So what I funded in this budget is a performance parking zone for U Street. And DDOT would implement that. It's fully funded. It's in the instructing language is in law. And they'll be getting to work on that soon and setting it up. That becomes the dedicated funding stream for the community improvement district. So you don't rely on a council member, say, to put an earmark in the budget every year. Because what I'm trying to do right now is make sure that we have bodies and systems in Ward 1 that are sustainable regardless of who's in office. And so the parking zone comes first. That'll take us at least the fiscal year to set up. And then we move into the community improvement zone. That'll have a board of directors. That'll include government leaders, community members, and businesses. And they'll be the decision makers for what happens there. But the vision is very clear, which is create a U Street that's vibrant and safe, as we discussed in the U Street Safety Initiative that I led last year. So I think we have our marching orders, we have a funding mechanism, and we have a plan. I'm excited that people are excited about it. I'm glad that people are willing to be a little patient with its implementation, but that dedicated funding stream is ready to go now. And we once we get that parking off the ground, that'll be right there in the bucket. And the added benefit of a performance parking zone is it makes people pay the value of the parking while they're visiting. And we have them in stadium zones right now, but we haven't done them in this type of commercial corridor. And that means that if you're going to park on any of these streets, the price is going to go up based on demand. And for some people, that will be enough of a deterrent not to drive. And for some people, that'll be enough of a deterrent to just not circle and go to a garage. And it has to come with the built-in enforcement that we put into the budget, because otherwise it won't mean anything. It also pilots a permit or pay system, which I love and I wish I could do everywhere, where, if you're going to visit, you've got to pay. And if you live there, you have a permit, but that you don't just get to chill on the block without one of those two things. So that's the technical term, chill on the block.
I do want to follow up on that, because the MU10, a lot of the high density stuff around here is not allowed to have permanent parking. And so they're going to pay to play and live, right?
Yeah.
So that
And
might
I'll
be a
look at the
loophole.
map with you.
Yeah. And that's my next question. So how has the map been drawn? And yeah. I've been talking to a number of people. We're going to get together and have our first kind of conversation about trying to form some sort of bid, and definitely want to make sure it's in line with what's going on that you're doing.
Yeah.
But every single person I've talked to is like, can you expand the map that you're like thinking about. Like, yeah, like we'll make a decision of what you guys think it all should be. Like, this is just to get the ball rolling. So what metrics did you use in order to put a map together, and what does it look like right now?
We used the map of the Arts Overlay District because that was one that already existed, and it kept it simpler. And you know, there's always room for discussion on that. But it seemed like a good place to start because that was a map that had extensive debate in community when it was established at the ANC and ANC 1B. But when we did the language to draft look, there you go. The Uptown Arts. Yep. When we did the map for the parking, that's what we used. So yeah, and we can make sure you have it all. But yeah, that's it's a start, and I look forward to it growing from there and much more discussion.
Great. Thank you.
Absolutely. I love the question.
Commissioners, other questions? I know, I'm asking commissioners first. I'm on it. I got it.
Is it a good one? I feel like there's a lot of build-up.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if there are no other questions from commissioners, then we will go to the public. So real quick, just as a reminder, because I know that we have a couple of people who are joining us virtually, but also joining us over the phone. If you have a question, sorry, I need to find my instructions. Okay, for those joining us in person, please raise your hand and I will call on you, and I will, please come up to the podium so that we can, or actually, council member, if you don't mind, just repeating their questions to people online. For those joining us virtually, please indicate you'd like to speak by raising your hand using the button on the toolbar below. If you're calling in rather than participating online, you may raise your hand by dialing *9. I'll call on members of the public in the order that your hand was raised. So to get us started, we did have a question. Could there also be coffee walks in the late morning or early afternoon to include residents who have night jobs, restaurant gigs, overnight nursing shifts, etc.?
Happy to. And I should just say that coffee walk is like one thing that we do in terms of community engagement. I also do monthly community office hours. I mentioned earlier, BOYB, Brienne on Your Block. Those are evenings 6 to 8. And generally speaking, you know, if you can't make my office hours, but you still want some FaceTime, either I can meet with you or one of my staff can do that and do a walk with you. We love doing that. So we try to be flexible and out there. Today, I joined the mayor on a public safety walk at 4 o'clock. We know people are busy and people work hard, and not everybody even has time to show up to things in person. So I try to be as accessible as possible at different times. And actually should mention, one of my newest colleagues, Estelle McKinney, is here tonight. She will be repping me to 1E when I can't be here myself, and you're gonna love her.
Nice to meet you. Any questions from the public? No? All right. And I give another second for anybody online. Please indicate that you would like to speak by raising your hand. All right. Seeing none. Thank you, council member.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. And I fortunately don't see the Mocher here with us today, and I don't see them online. Portia, if you are with us, please raise your hand. If you are calling in rather than using the web, you can raise your hand by dialing *9. All right. Are there any members of the public that would like to give a announcement or have a comment? All right, seeing none, we will move right along. All right, so we will now move on to official business, which has been organized into 3 standing committees. The committee chairs will begin by providing a brief update on their committee's activities from October. Then we will walk through each item of business and they will have 5 minutes per item to present. They will take questions from commissioners and then audience members until a motion is proposed. With that, we will start with Transportation and Public Committee and Transportation Public Space Committee, and Chair recognizes Commissioner Jacobson.
Thank you, Chair Footer. You want to mute? Yeah, perfect. Yes, so the Transportation and Public Spaces Committee met earlier this month. We meet on the first Wednesday of every month. We talked a little bit about the ANC resolutions that we passed last month, one of which was the testimony for the transportation and public safety bills that Councilmember Nadeau had just mentioned. So I testified on that on October 4th, 2023. Had some good feedback there, and so appreciated the council moving those bills forward. And then this month we talked about a couple of resolutions and also heard a presentation from Howard University around their homecoming festivities and on the Georgia Avenue bus lane project that is ongoing. So we can jump into the resolution on the Georgia Avenue bus priority project. I believe this body has either passed a resolution or had talked previously around the goal of having center running lanes for Georgia Avenue. We recognize that at this point that likely won't happen. And so this resolution is just talking about the current rough plans that DDOT has released for the two buses on Georgia Avenue, the 70 and the 79, and talks about some of the benefits that having the bus lanes would bring. These would be offset lanes, so they'd be basically next to the sidewalk in a lot of portions, and then offset in other portions, especially where there are bump outs. So this resolution is just calling out some of the benefits, talking about how bus lanes can reduce traffic congestion by getting more folks on the bus. And then there's also a piece in here around the camera enforcement to deter the blocking of bus lanes. That's been found to further reduce bus travel delays and reduce traffic crashes. So the two pieces in here are really talking about the high level concept that DDOT has released and supporting that high level concept for offset bus lanes, and then also asking DDOT to resume the plan for the fines for blocking bus lanes in the Clear Lanes program, because that was delayed indefinitely. And it isn't clear what exactly caused that delay. And then the last piece was just encouraging DDOT to designate some space for short-term pickup, drop-off, and loading and unloading zones along Georgia Avenue, since we suspect there's going to be plenty of need for that, and they'll obstruct the bus lanes if that isn't planned out. And then considering some raised crosswalks along Georgia Avenue, parallel to Georgia Avenue, so on the streets that intersect Georgia Avenue where it makes sense. What questions are there from questions or comments from commissioners?
I'll just say that, thank you for putting this together. And I know that are still collecting comments through the early part of November. And there have been a lot of discussions and trying to talk to Howard University and others, and, having have a portion of Howard University in my own SMD, I still feel quite strongly that this is the correct path and is the best path forward for the greater good. So happy to support this, and thank you for putting it together.
Thank you.
Others? Are there any questions or comments from members of the public? All right, seeing none. Do you want to do one by one?
Yeah, well, actually, I just want to make one additional note here, just to make sure folks fully understand, this is just for the high level concept. There are going to be more conversations and like more specific block by block designs that will be released in the future. And so as those come out, there will also be public comment periods for that. So there'll be ample opportunity to give feedback to DDOT on these plans. And with that, I guess I will make a motion with unanimous consent that we pass this resolution as written.
Is there any dissent? All right, seeing none, the motion passes and the resolution is adopted. And then I will bring up your next resolution.
Yep, so this next resolution is just around the future leadership for DDOT. As folks are likely aware, the former director Lott left at the end of September. And this resolution is pretty short just because I think it's pretty obvious the danger that our streets have become. I think I actually need to update this 40 since we first wrote this to 42 now, unfortunately. 42 folks have died on our streets, and that is the most deadly since I think 2007 at this point. So pretty bad situation overall, and wanted to just call out that we need the best candidate to lead the agency. There should be a nationwide search. So I want to make sure that we have the best possible person. That person should have some experience in Vision Zero and a serious commitment to reducing deaths on our roadways. I want to make sure the council actually holds a vote on the nominee, since they did not hold a vote on Director Lott. And the recommendation to the council is to disapprove of any nominee that doesn't have a demonstrated commitment to reducing deaths. And the last piece is just holding an up or down vote.
Questions? Comments? Any questions or comments from the public? Right. Seeing and hearing none, I'll accept a motion to approve the, oh, question.
There's just a small typo. Can we administratively handle that later, or do we need to?
Does Commissioner have a friendly amendment that you'd like to suggest?
Yeah, on the whereas ANC 1E recognizes the is.
Oh,
supportive-
thank you for
Sorry.
catching that.
Very happy.
ANC 1E is supportive of, it should just say ANC 1E is supportive of efforts to reduce. Yeah. Thank you, Commissioner Gallagher.
All right, do we have a motion to?
I'm so moved with, or I make a motion with unanimous consent to approve the resolution as written.
Great. Any dissent? All right, hearing none, motion passes and the resolution is adopted.
Yep, currently our next meeting is actually going to be November 1st. This is, oh, sorry, yeah, it is November 1st. I'm just looking further down. But we don't have anything on the agenda so far, so it might end up being canceled. I need to reach out to the committee and see if anyone has anything, since this is the first time that we haven't had something come up, so. But if that is so canceled, then we will update the ANC website to reflect that.
Thank you very much. All right, moving on to zoning and economic development. Commissioner Gallagher.
Thanks, Chair Footer. ANC 1E Zoning and Economic Development Committee last met on October 11th. And for the record, our next meeting is November 8th. The two official matters that we considered were two Board of Zoning adjustment cases for the properties at 786 Lamont and 3109 Georgia Avenue. I'd like to cede at least a substantial portion of my time to Commissioner Ray to describe these cases in detail. He really just loves the sections described for zoning. So I will, with his consent, defer to him. Thank you.
Thank you, Committee Chairman. So both of these resolutions were given support by the committee. I believe it was unanimous votes, and well, I shouldn't say that. They were both voted on and supported by the committee. So the first is 786 Lamont, and I think you're probably going to bring up the report. And I thankfully did have my glasses on hand so I can actually read them. 786 is planning for a very modest addition. It's a 2-story addition. Usually in our neighborhood, you're allowed to do up to a 3-story addition, but this is only filling in a small area in the rear of the house that has a dog leg. A dog leg is where an addition was put on the house once before, but they left a small notch out so that a window could be installed. They're filling this in order to make the house just a little bit larger and more appropriate for them to live in. This is going to be this is being redeveloped by the family that is going to be living there as permanently as we all live in our homes these days. The committee reviewed the plans, which anyone can find in ISIS, and did not find that this modest addition was going to solve or cause any problems with regard to light and air, privacy, and then the general use by the neighbors. They did provide shadow studies, which was very helpful because not only does it show that there wasn't much additional shadow, but it also showed that there was no additional shadows or not enough additional shadows on a solar project that was installed on one of the neighbors' homes. So that was good. We also saw that as part of this project, they're removing one of those neighbor-facing windows, which in many ways would be seen as something to improve privacy, not necessarily to detract from privacy. So that was also helpful in our review. They have letters of support from both of the adjoining neighbors, so the one on the left and the one on the right are in support of what they are doing. However, we did also review one letter in opposition. The committee found that neighbor is actually across the street, up the alley, and 3 or 4 houses down the block. So while we understand that some neighbors are in opposition, they are not close enough to this property that they would be impacted by light and air and privacy and the general use of their homes for such a modest 2-story addition. There was some discussion in the letter about concerns over construction. And while every neighbor can be concerned about construction and probably should be, that is within the purview of the Department of Buildings. And so if they have concerns over construction related issues, they should seek that recourse with the Department of Buildings and not with the BZA. The BZA handles zoning matters and does not handle construction related matters. So we've written that into the report so that everyone is aware. So basically, the committee would recommend that we approve the listed relief, which is in this case the rear addition, which goes a little more than 10 feet beyond the existing home. However, as I said, it's an infill dogleg. It's not a totally new addition. It abuts one that's already there. And then it increases the lot occupancy to as much as 62%. 60% is what you can do by right. 62 is a pretty nominal increase in order to fit this in. So with that, I'll take any questions, but would certainly look to support this application.
From commissioners? No. Questions from members of the community? All right, seeing none, I'll now accept a motion to support resolution supporting a zoning adjustment request for 786 Lamont Street Northwest, which is BZA case number 21018.
So moved with unanimous consent.
Is there any dissent? Right, seeing and hearing none, the motion passes and the resolution is adopted. I will pull up the next one.
So 3109 Georgia. let me unmute myself there. 3109 Georgia Avenue is not undergoing a renovation. Instead, it is going to be utilized by a church. And there are special provisions within the zoning requirements that churches are to have a certain number of parking spaces based on the size of the congregation. If memory serves, the size of this congregation would be set at about 40 people. And so therefore, I believe the number was 4 parking spaces that would be asked for within the zone. This block, in fact, the entirety of this block is built out to its capacity. So all of the homes occupy as much of the lot spaces as you almost could have. So there is no space on the block, or I'm sorry, within the lot to accommodate those 4 spaces. The next opportunity then is that the applicant would look within the reasonable distance within the near the property for any privately run parking facilities that they would then be able to lease space from. Those also do not exist in this particular case. So barring those 2 things, there really is no opportunity to add additional parking spaces. So they would be granted a special exception for this case. They are a church which currently operates a number of facilities in the general area. And for most of those, their parishioners are people who do not necessarily own cars because of the expense that one incurs when you have to own and operate a motor vehicle within our area or within the United States in general, when we talk about maintenance and other kinds of issues that come up. So they're very much used to using public transportation. We had an extensive discussion around that and about how that would be needed to be re-encouraged on a regular basis. Street parking in this area is not going to get any easier in the future. As you just heard, there's going to be a bus lane project, which will have some impacts. There's going to be more development on this block. There's going to be more development across the street at the Bruce Monroe site at some point. So street parking, will become more of a premium. But thankfully, with bus lanes, with the metro, there are plenty of opportunities to use mass transit, and they will take advantage of those with their parishioners. So the community. We could find no reason not to approve that special exception, and therefore we would support that relief.
Any questions from commissioners?
Comment? So this particular property is within my SMD, and I just wanted to let the commission know that I fully support this special exception request.
Any questions or comments from the public? Right, hearing and seeing none, I will now accept a
No,
motion.
the developer or the owner is on.
Bring them up. They don't have to speak.
Yeah.
You do want to.
Marcy, if you want to speak on this case, feel free to raise your hand since you're on. No pressure in doing that, but I do want to recognize you.
So with no other comments or questions, I'll now accept a motion to support resolution in support of zoning adjustment request for 3109 Georgia Avenue Northwest, BZA case 21014.
So moved with unanimous consent.
Right. Is there any dissent? Seeing and hearing none, the motion passes and the resolution is adopted. I do see a question, and Mary just said, thank you. There's nothing further I wish to add. So thank you, Marcy. All right. So I will bring back the agenda and Commissioner Gallagher, closing comments.
Nothing else that's substantive on that front, but just wanted to reiterate my thanks to Commissioner Ray for his many years of his expertise gained over many years doing this. So thanks so much, Commissioner Ray.
Do you maybe want to remind people of your next meeting? Okay. All right, next we move on to Public Safety and Engagement Committee. Commissioner Newland.
Thank you, Chair Footer. No official business to report. Our last meeting was supposed to be on October 9th, but it was also the same day as Indigenous Peoples Day. So our participants and folks from the community attendance was lacking. So we did not have a meeting. Looking forward to rescheduling some of our special guests for our next meeting. I believe we should have a representative from the 4th district to talk about a few things that they're focused on there in terms of MPD. And then I know that we also have 2 different resolutions in the works in regards to the public safety legislation that the council member referenced earlier this evening. But again, no official business to report, no resolutions as of yet. So look forward to welcoming everybody at our next meeting, Monday, November 13th. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments for Commissioner Newland? Great. Well, that concludes our official business. If there is no other business before the commission, I'll now accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved with unanimous consent.
Is there any dissent? Hearing none, the motion passes and we are adjourned. I will say before we leave really quickly, just a couple of notes. Please note that our next general body meeting of ANC 1E is on Wednesday, November 29th. And the committee on the whole will be on Tuesday, November 21st. We did play with the schedule a little bit just to be respectful of the Thanksgiving holiday. Also, ANC 1E will not have a general public meeting in December. Therefore, please plan accordingly to address any official business in November, or it will have to wait until we return in January of 2024. If you have any questions about that, please reach out to your single member district representative, the commissioners who are listed here, or reach out to any of us, and we're all happy to address any questions or comments. Please look to our website for any additional announcements or other information about ANC 1E. And our website again is anc1e.org. With that, thank you very much.